Thank you, President Stoley. We are excited tonight to be here with members of our academic services team to help walk us through so many of the different components with literacy that we have in the district. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Brett Schneider.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are very excited to have you here this evening to learn about literacy in the Wentzville School District. We've created a learning experience for you this evening that'll be interactive, informative, and a way for you to learn and grow in the area of literacy and what it means here in our school district. I'm fortunate to have a great team that stayed here with us tonight to work through this with us. I would like to welcome Nicole Willman, who is our Director of Elementary Programming, Margot Mann, who is our Literacy Content Leader, Jenny McBride, who is our ELA Content Leader, Jill Klon-Smith, who is our Director of Assessment, Data, and School Improvement. Did I get all the things in there? Constance Hallemeyer, who is down at the end. She is our District Intervention Coach. I would also like to thank our literacy coaches for being here tonight. They met with us and planned a great interactive session for us tonight and helped us with some great ideas. So I would like to also give them a lot of credit and thank them for showing up to support us tonight. All right, our purpose tonight is to collaboratively build an understanding and reflect on district literacy practices.
Before we jump into the workshop, we want to ground ourselves in our why. As you can see in the picture here, these are our students. Everyone at this table wants the same thing, and that's to see our students learn and grow as readers, writers, and learners. We're all here for our students, and that is something for us to celebrate. As we begin, I invite you to open your folder and take out your packet and turn to page 1 in your workbook to reflect on our literacy practice in Wentzville School District. Please take a minute to jot down some thoughts in the left column of that first page titled, "What do you think when you hear about literacy in the WSD?"
Sure you're jotting down at least 5, 10 things you think you know about literacy. Get your list going. Margot, think you know. Margot, we keep these on track. That's right.
No cheating.
Knows the answer. All right. Kind of finish that thought you're jotting. All right, so I'm going to take just a couple minutes to go ahead and review the agenda, just to give you an overview of the workshop. We're going to start with taking a quick look and review our past, where we are now, and we'll also take a look into the future. Jenny will review our ELA curriculum and adoption process. Jill will guide us through all things assessment, data, accountability, as well as our work that we do with the Reading Success Plan. Constance and I will talk a bit about the CI3T model. Then Nicole and I will also discuss leadership and stability, and also provide some details about our district's coaching model. Then Katie will end with supporting partnerships and literacy. Lots of information, and what we know about learning new information is that we really have to engage in the thinking. So I want to emphasize that this is an interactive literacy workshop. So this means it's not just a sit and get, like we really want you to participate. So we will be asking you to do things that may require you to have your highlighter, your Post-its. We will do some turn and talks, so you might want to make some eye contact with your partner. Right? Hello. So make sure you're comfortable there, because we know we need to turn and talk. Also, taking some time to write some notes. That's why we have this workbook here for you, to help guide your thinking and jot some things down to help you remember. So, all right, I think we're ready to get started.
So we're going to look at where were we then, where are we now, and where are we in the future. So our activity is going to involve us being in some small groups. We're going to be looking at pages 2 through 7 in your workbook, and I'm going to split you up into some groups. So group 1 is going to be down here on this end. Thank you. Group 1, that's going to be down here on this end. This is Vice President Lysak, Dr. Labrat, and Director Olson. Director Olson. Group 2 is going to be Dr. Bishop, Ms. McBride, President Stoley, and Dr. Tormala. Group 3, you're going to be Dr. Conn-Smith, Secretary Henke, and Dr. Willman. No, Mrs. Willman, sorry. Group 4 is Ms. Kramer, Dr. Bretschneider, and Director Lewis. And Group 5 is Ms. Mann, Director Goodson, and Mr. Brett. Is he down there? Oh, Pat. Oh, he's not here. Okay. So sorry, your group is just you guys on the end. So group 1, right here, you guys are going to be looking at pages 2 and 3. Group 2, you guys are going to be looking at page 4. Group 3, you guys are page 5. Group 4, you guys are 6. And group 5, all the way on the end, you guys are page 7. All right. Does everybody know where they're looking? All right. So you and your partners are going to look for shifts from then to now to future. So you might want to grab some highlighters out of the little buckets that are in front of you. As you're looking for them, highlight them in different colors. So when you see a pattern or a trend, go ahead and highlight them. You're looking for the biggest pattern or shift that had an impact on literacy in the WSD. And then there are your, like the blue headers, the green headers, that to help you. You're going to get about 4 minutes to do this activity, and then we're going to share your biggest takeaway. So what is the biggest trend that your group talked about and saw in the information? What questions do we have before we get started? No, I don't. You have about a minute and a half. All right, we are going to start with group 5. So all the way down there with Margot and Director Goodson. If you guys could share what page you're looking at, and then your big takeaway.
Okay, so we had the slide 7, which had implementation, leadership, accountability, and sustainability. So in looking at column then, we highlighted that we had then literacy coaches in all of our elementary buildings. And then in the column now, as the district has grown, we now share those literacy coaches throughout the buildings. And in the future, we're looking to expand that those coaches go into all buildings, K through 12. So the trend has actually been, from past to now, has been to the degradation of what we would ideally like, then hoping to turn that trend in the future.
Thank you. What questions do we have for group 5? Nope. All right, group 4?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Just to clarify, expand instructional coaches to all buildings means hire one per building kind of thing? Like one? instead of sharing buildings. I just wanted clarification, make sure.
Thank you. All right, group 4. What do we have to share? What page are we on, and what do we have to share?
Well, the group 4 is commonly referred to as the A team. We're on, oh, we're on page 6 under professional development. We're looking at the same 3 characters that titles of columns, but one of the things we wanted to focus on is was the mentor-mentee. Felt that, you know, the growing of that is critical, for, especially for all the new teachers that we have. Then coaching was, they really didn't have it defined, but it was coaching cycles with all teachers who request it. As you go to now, it became first-year teachers must participate in the cycle, and then other teachers could still request as needed. And I take it by the fact that it's consistent into the future. They believe that that's a winning program to continue to do the mentor-mentee, so they're going to stay with a good thing.
Thank you. What questions do we have for group 4? All right, thank you so much. Group 3, what page are we on, and what would you like to share?
Okay, we're on page 5. We're gonna name ourselves the A+ team. So, I didn't run that by Renee or Jill, but we're going with it. So one thing that stood out was how then for Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions, our options were pretty limited. There wasn't a lot of variety, and it wasn't data-based. So when you move to now, there's a lot more options for our reading interventionists and our classroom teachers to use when when looking for targeted interventions for students that were at risk for reading. And then as we look in the future, we see that training is on there, as well as updated entrance and exit criteria. So we're really moving towards a data-based decision-making process, as opposed to like this kid we think is really struggling, we should put him in intervention, making it very intentional and explicit.
What questions might we have for group 3? All right, group 2. What page are you on, and what would you like to share?
We are on page 4, which is resources for Tier 1 instruction. We noticed whenever we looked at this document that, number one, a lot of our resources were weighted a little bit heavier towards elementary than they are for secondary, but we also noticed that it's an evolving process with the resources that we have. You can see on this document where we've noticed that there were some instructional gaps, and that we've made some progress on filling those instructional gaps through both new resources and continued professional development as well.
Thank you. What questions do we have for group 2? None? All right, group 1, they did have the most challenging because they had 2 pages of materials, so that's why we started at group 5. So they're going to tell us which page they're on and what they'd like to share.
All right, we are on pages 2 and 3 talking about curriculum for Tier 1. Thank you for the extra time. We were feverishly working. So what we noticed was there is a call and response type of situation. So when you're looking at the historical dates on then, it's talking about standards are released, and then grade level expectations are released, and then we rewrite curriculum, and then there's a new state assessment. And so every time there's a state move, then we make a change in response to that state move in order to prepare for the newly amended test. And then the cycle continues again. So as the state learns more, then we learn more, and we evolve, like a plan, do, study, act cycle. And we were talking about how a lot of our curriculum was a comprehensive curriculum focused on reading and writing as a whole. We did adopt curriculum materials, as Group 2 mentioned, in response to that, but then learned that there were some holes and then filled in with some supplementary materials. Also noting that now we have accelerated the curriculum writing schedule 2 years in advance of our 6-year cycle for K-5 and 1 year in advance for, 1 year in advance for 6-8 and 9-12. Looking toward new state assessments, so we'll launch a new curriculum next year for K-5 and 6-8. 2025, we'll have new state assessments again, so we'll see how that's working. And then the general information that we noted was that we're going to continue to provide professional development, ensuring that it's evidence-based instructional practice. We'll start looking toward a standards-based shift in grading and reporting that's more competency-based versus just versus just like a completion type of or an accuracy type of grade, and then also refining that RSP process. So as the state changes, this showed that we were making adjustments, or we continue to make adjustments.
All right, what questions do we have for group one?
I've got to ask a question. I can only go so long without asking. Important dates on then. I mean, the disaster of Common Core and 10, 14, 16, 18. Every couple of years, looks like things change. Is reading changed that much? Do you still not just learn? I mean, how can every 2 years it change when it's just reading? I mean, I don't mean to minimize it, but I'm confused.
I'll speak as part of group one, and if anybody else wants to add into it, please feel free. I feel like in education that's always evolving, there are always adjustments made to state assessment, to standards, trying to refine what we want people to know. Different sets of research say XYZ is best versus ABC. Then there are studies. Based on that study, then we re-implement what best practice would be. And so I would say it's not been just this in the last 10 to 15 years. I feel like this is what it's been for a very long time, just depending on what research says is most accurate. Sometimes it's vacillated back and forth, and we're hoping that we're honing in on the right research.
So do you have any feeling or measurement of every time changing every 2 years? Does that help, or does it contribute to the challenge?
Yeah, yes and no.
Well,
It'd be nice to have a target or goal or expectation and be able to work toward that same target without adjusting the sales, if you will, every couple of years. But then also, if the adjustments are good and the reason is solid, then we want to make those changes. So it's a double-edged sword.
Are you able to pick and choose what
Nope.
you keep that is good?
I mean, we
Or
can
you throw
all.
out the baby with the dirty water?
You always try to maintain your good practices alongside the new expectations. If something's good, you don't want to recreate the wheel, but you sharpen and hone what you know and what you do, and you continue to improve it.
Good.
I had some questions. Sorry, Group 1, you're getting a hard time over here. You did have 2 pages, though. So, and maybe I have the wrong group. I don't know. I lost track of all the groups. But when did we last adopt an ELA curriculum? I don't remember if it was this group, but I probably should have chimed in, but it just kind of popped in my head that it said we're ahead of the adoption schedule. So when did we last adopt a curriculum for ELA? 2018.
It was revised. Nope, I lied. See, I don't know. You have to answer this question. It says K-5, it was an ELA curriculum, was revised in 2018.
Okay.
To align.
And then, I don't think this is Group 1. It's whoever had the tiers. Which group was that? Sorry, group.
No, you're fine.
Whatever group you are. The A+ group? So I was just wondering, as I look at the tiers, it says now we have OG in Tier 3. Are we at all exploring the idea of adding OG to Tier 1 at all, since the dyslexia law recommendation from that task force talks about how that's the best that those students read, and it's really beneficial to all students and they read? Have we explored any of that or given that any kind of thought?
To say about it. Typically OG, and I'm not an expert in OG, but I know
Can you tell everybody what OG is?
Orton Gillingham. Typically that is used as teaching practices, and it is good for all kids, but typically it is used for our most at-risk readers. It has that multisensory approach. But I don't know if there's someone else at the table that knows about. Yeah, Margot might know the best.
As far as looking at it as Tier 1, I mean, it's could definitely be that conversation, but we have really been just focusing on a lot of the instructional practices within letters training, which also is a big multi-sensory approach to teaching. But we have, like over the last several years, all of our reading interventionists are trained in OG, but we haven't invested in like mass all staff. It is a pretty intense program as well, and also thinking about our times and structures. I mean, it could have been part of the curriculum writing conversation, but it really hasn't been. It's been our focus to be for more of those high-need kids. So
this is more a comment, I guess, and I would just really want to pick the brains of everyone at this table, because we did mention we're all here for, to do the best for our students. I think it would be extremely beneficial as we work to progress, to identify the needs of our kids. We know, I mean, you said it was intensive, and it is intensive. That methodology is intensive. Letters is also intensive, but we know those things work in the classroom.
absolutely.
And so I think if we, and you said it's time consuming, absolutely, but I think if we could even, if the board could see, just maybe something about how we could work more of that in, how we could have the teachers in the classroom to have that, to have that training. I love that our coaches and interventionists have it, but that's obviously something that would benefit all. And then they can, obviously reach out to, reach out if they need additional coaching to those people. I mean, it's literally how other states are turning around their programs, and I
Well,
think
we are actually tomorrow and Friday, all of us are starting our facilitator training for letters, and we're looking to start making sure we can actually start doing those cohorts within our district. So we've got, over the last couple years, I don't have the number right off the top of my head, but we do have many classroom teachers that have been participating in letters training. And you are absolutely right. I think we can all speak to that. It is a lot of time, not only for the training, but then their personal time learning, like probably another 15 to 16 hours of their, it's like taking a 6-hour college credit, but we have lots of teachers participating in that, and we will continue to grow that program, which is why we're also getting trained so we can house that training here within our district. We don't have to send them somewhere else to have it done.
Yeah, I just think as you guys progress, I think it would be exciting for the board to see how that work is moving forward.
They can come into our class. We've got lots of classroom teachers trying this work out. So yeah, we definitely have you come in, and
yeah,
I'm sure they'd love
or
for you
just
to see it.
any incentive. I mean, you said it's a lot. It's a huge time commitment, but any incentive that might be for consideration for stipends or anything like that. So those are my thoughts.
And I would agree with President Stoley. I've done my own research on Orton Gillingham, and the research is there. I mean, there is years and years of research, and I'm less familiar with letters. But, yeah, the Orton Gillingham is very intensive, and I would agree that should be moved to maybe Tier 1 and Tier 2 to look into that, because it is intensive. And when you have a child who is struggling, you want to give them all the help you can give them all at one time, and then you start weaning them. So that's the approach that I would like to see.
Any other questions before we move on? All right. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for asking questions as well. Now, Jenny McBride will share information about the ELA curriculum specifically.
As I share with you some information connected to our core ELA curriculum, I ask that you turn to page 8 of your workbook. As you listen, you're going to engage in a reflective activity called text rendering. Listen for information that really sticks out to you and write down word for word exactly as I say it, one sentence, one phrase, and one word that you're going to hold on to. At the end of this section of the presentation, we'll share out our takeaways. So again, just as you listen, make sure that you're jotting some things down. There'll also be some stuff up on the screens for you that you can jot down as well. And then I will prompt you from time to time to take some notes in case you've just been listening and not necessarily stopping and jotting. So during the 2022 to 2023 school year, Academic Services made several shifts in our curriculum writing process to meet the changing needs of learners throughout the district and to improve user experience. This process is rooted in our fundamental beliefs about curriculum writing, which are as follows. 1, we believe in the power of writing our own curriculum. When teachers are involved in the curriculum writing process, they gain a deeper understanding of standards and connections to student learning. 2, we believe curriculum is a continuous improvement process. Curriculum teams come together after the curriculum is adopted to review and adjust for student learning as needed to ensure continued effectiveness. 3, we believe all students should develop proficiency set forth by the state of Missouri, as well as the 8 competencies of the WSD Portrait of a Learner. And 4, we believe it is necessary to provide educators with specific curriculum-embedded professional learning. These beliefs are clearly embedded within the 6-year curriculum writing cycle, which is broken down into 6 phases. The WSD curriculum development process makes the use of design thinking to ensure teams of educators understand the needs of the curriculum user and to deepen their understanding and application of current research in regards to teaching and learning as the teams work to develop a product that is both reflective of all student needs and responsive to the ever-changing world. Understanding by design, a traditional curriculum development framework, follows a backwards planning process that focuses on identifying intended learning outcomes, designing measurements of those outcomes in multiple forms of assessments, and developing curricular units to ensure the outcomes are achieved by all students. Before I move on to the next part of the process, please take a moment to jot down a sentence, a phrase, and/or a word you heard or read if you have not done so already. It's important to note that the new ELA curriculum, meaning K through 12 ELA curriculum, is coming ahead of the original schedule. Originally, the new K through 5 ELA curriculum was scheduled to go into effect in August of 2026. Academic Services recognized the severity of the need for a new elementary curriculum, so we pushed up the timeline. Our new K through 5 ELA curriculum will be implemented in August of 2024, which is 2 years ahead of the original schedule. Originally, the new 6 through 8 ELA curriculum was scheduled to go into effect in August of 2025. Academic Services recognized the need for a new curriculum, so we pushed up the timeline. Our new 6 through 8 ELA curriculum will be implemented in August of 2024, which is 1 year ahead of the original schedule. Originally, the new 9 through 12 ELA curriculum was scheduled to go into effect in various years based on the last course revision, which happened between 2017 and 2022, depending on the different high school course. Academic Services recognized the need for a new curriculum, so we pushed up the timeline. Our new 9 through 12 ELA curriculum will be implemented in August of 2025, which is several years ahead of the original schedule. Now that I've talked about curriculum timelines, please take a moment to jot some information you heard or read on your paper if you have not done so already. The teams do an immense amount of work in such a short window during each phase of the curriculum writing process. During phases 1 and 2, which each span 1 academic year, the curriculum team can only meet a maximum of 6 times per year due to sub-shortages. This work begins with the Missouri Learning Standards and typically ends with resource selection. In K through 5 ELA, we began the resource selection process by looking at 15 resources: Benchmark Advanced, Foundations, Amplify CKLA, Wonders, Savvis MyView Literacy, American Reading Company, Into Reading, Imagine Learning, Open Up Resources, 95% Group, UFly Foundations, Ready Reading and Writing, Wit and Wisdom, Journeys, and Hegarty. The first step of this process was to review the ED report for each curriculum resource. For reference, ED Reports is a not-for-profit organization that evaluates curriculum resources across all grade levels and content areas using a strict evaluation process and team. 10 of the 15 resources did not earn all green on ED Reports and therefore did not move on to the next round. Another resource was removed from the process because we never heard back from their representatives about scheduling a meeting or sending samples. This left us with 4 resources to evaluate: Benchmark Advance, Amplify CKLA, Savis MyView Literacy, and Imagine Learning. A sub-team of the K-5 curriculum team that included myself, the literacy lead, all district literacy coaches, and the former director of elementary programming developed a resource evaluation rubric that was then intended to be used to determine which of these 4 resources we would pilot, which was initially scheduled to begin in August of 2023. We decided to pause this process until DESE released guidance on their recommended resources, which was supposed to be released in October of 2022, but was not released until the end of June 2023. This list only included Benchmark Advance and Wonders. Plans then shifted as we felt it necessary to stick with the list because we were under such a strict time crunch. These are the 2 resources we are piloting. The Benchmark Advance pilot has already begun. Both of these resources, Benchmark Advance and Wonders, are tightly aligned to the science of reading, the letters training our teachers have been engaging with, and the Missouri Learning Standards. They also both deliver instruction under a structured literacy framework, which when coupled with the alignment to all Missouri Learning Standards and the evidence-based instructional approach, will increase student achievement. Now that I've talked about the K-5 curriculum process, please take a moment to jot some information you have heard or read on your paper if you have not already done so. Our district iReady data tells us that students tend to score lower across the board in reading comprehension of informational text. Both of the resources that we are looking at for elementary students have a 50-50 split of literary and informational text. This means our students will spend significantly more time working with informational text and practicing these skills needed to be proficient in this strand when compared with our current curriculum and resources. Vocabulary is another area that our students typically score a bit lower on, and the more explicit and systematic word study approach we see with these resources will help teachers fill instructional gaps and improve proficiency in this area. 6th through 12th grade ELA will not pilot resources. We will, however, review resources to support our teacher-developed curriculum. We are considering novels and text sets, grammar resources, and online platforms where teachers can access text and other resources like Common Lit or Newsella. The high school ELA curriculum teams are currently in phase 1 and have just begun the process of curriculum rewrite and are working with standards and developing proficiency scales. Middle school teams, however, are in phase 2 and have made a decision to transition away from our current instructional approach, which views reading literary text, reading informational text, and writing as separate entities, and towards an instructional approach called thematic teaching. We are developing units by thematic concepts and incorporating standards by all standard strands to ensure immediate transfer of skills. For instance, while evaluating an author's purpose or perspective in literary and informational text is slightly different, connecting these concepts across different disciplines is an evidence-based way to deepen a student's understandings of the concept. Thematic teaching will also ensure more frequent and intentional writing in our classrooms. Now that I've talked about 6 through 12 curriculum process, please take a moment to jot some information you have heard or read on your paper if you've not done so already. At this point, you've heard a lot of information related to K through 12 ELA curriculum, and you should have written down, word for word, exactly as I have said it, one sentence, one phrase, and one word that you are going to hold on to. We are now going to do what's called a whip around. Each person will share their one sentence without any explanation, just exactly as you've written it. Once one person finishes, the next person goes. So take a moment to look over what you've written down and identify which one sentence, which one phrase, and which one word you feel like is most important to share.
Cheat sheet.
We're going to whip around and share in here in a second.
with everybody.
Yep, we're going to share with everybody. Just waiting for everybody to pick theirs. Yeah, so we're going to share one thing from each column. So here in just a second, we're going to go around. Director Olson, you're actually going to start because you just happened to be on my right. I'm so sorry. I'll talk a little longer so you have some time here. Okay. And then we will whip around. Everyone is just going to share their one sentence first. So you're just sharing one thing at a time. We're going to go around, share a one sentence. Once everyone is done, Mr. Bishop, you will be last to share your one sentence. So we'll go around this way. Everyone will share their one sentence, and then we'll repeat that process with one phrase, and then repeat that process again with one word. So, Director Olson, whenever you are ready, you can share your one sentence.
It's an incomplete sentence because I didn't write the whole thing down, but it's curriculum writing is a continuous process.
It's okay if you repeat, guys. It's fine. It's fine.
When teachers are involved in the curriculum writing process, they gain a deeper understanding.
We believe it is a necessity to provide specific curriculum-embedded professional learning.
Academic services recognizes the need, ...
All students should develop all competencies defined by the Missouri Learning Standards and the 8 standards of a portrait of a learner.
We review and adjust for student learning outcomes and measurements.
So I think I finished the incomplete sentence. Curriculum is a continuous improvement process. So we've got some good teamwork here working. Okay, good.
The 2 resources are tightly aligned to the science of reading, to letters training that our teachers have been engaged in, and to the learning standards, Missouri Learning Standards.
Katie, I have your full sentence for you. Academic services recognize the need for new curriculum and pushed up the timeline.
The K through 12 curriculum is coming ahead of schedule. Sarah.
We believe it is a necessity to provide educators with specific curriculum-embedded professional learning.
We are limited to 6 days of training due to sub shortages.
I don't have a complete sentence. I just have science of reading and ahead of schedule.
Both of these resources, Benchmark Advance and Wonders, are tightly aligned to the science of reading, the letters training our teachers have been engaging with, and the Missouri Learning Standards.
Somebody had a script in front of them. We believe in the power of creating our own curriculum.
All right, we're going to repeat that process with our one phrase.
So my phrase is like 4 sentences, but I will narrow that down to 2 years ahead of schedule.
Ensure outcomes achieved by all students.
Ooh, I'm just going to steal 2 words, all students.
This one comes more with a question mark. You said something at the end about, at the middle school level, instructional shift to Thematic, okay, see it. Okay.
Science of reading.
I wrote power of writing our own curriculum.
Backwards planning process.
Teachers involved.
Katie and I are really twins because I had thematic teaching and connecting concepts.
Recognize need for change.
Continuous improvement process.
Ed reports 10 of 15 didn't pass.
Ed reports.
Deeper understanding of standards.
Proficiency as defined by the state of Missouri.
All right, last time around, repeat that process with your one word.
Achievement.
User-experience.
That's cheating. I was going to do that. Fill gaps. If I say it real fast, it's one word.
Reflective-responsive.
Students.
Proficiency.
Informational text.
Need.
Systematic.
Believe.
Evidence-based.
Vocabulary.
Curriculum.
Ahead.
And the problem with being last, everyone I wrote down is taken, so reflective, responsive vocabulary.
So hopefully out of this activity, you guys got some insight onto what we as academic services really value when it comes to the curriculum writing process and all of the strives that we're making to do what's best for our students. I want to thank you guys for engaging in this part of the presentation and for engaging in this activity. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Jill to talk about data assessment and accountability.
I have a question, if I may, quickly. I guess my confusion is around the 2 years ahead of schedule thing, because if the last time if it's a 6-year process for writing the curriculum, and the last time we did K through 5 ELA revision was in 2018, that would be a 2024 implementation for a new revision, and that's what we're doing.
No, that would mean that we would just begin writing in 2024 for a 6-year process. So we would end in 2018, and then we would start the next cycle 6 years after that, not implement 6 years after that. We write for 2 years before we implement.
So it's an 8-year process.
There's a 6-year time period between the end of one cycle and the beginning of another.
But from revision to revision is 8 years?
From revision to implementation in a classroom, it ends up being longer, yes. So we actually start within 6 years because we have to start writing the actual curriculum based on the standards. So that takes time before we can train and work with teachers on it. So yeah, before it gets into a classroom.
And I think that's probably confusion among a lot of people, not just me. It's something I hear a lot. If it's a 6-year process, they're thinking we're going to get another revision in 6 years. So that would be 2024. And if that's just when we're starting the revision process, I think maybe we should clarify that it's an 8-year process. From revision to implementation, the whole life cycle of the process.
Do you guys have any other questions for Jenny before we really have some fun? Okay. So we're going to spend a little bit of time in assessment and data. So we're going to first talk about the different assessments that we do use with literacy in the Wentzville School District. So our main assessment is the iReady diagnostic. And the reading diagnostic is meant to assess students on what they're ready to learn in the areas of phonemic awareness, phonics, high-frequency words, vocabulary, and comprehension, both in literature and informational text. And students in the upper grades in the upper grade levels, they do not necessarily see all those domains. Second graders start with phonics, and if the students are scoring low enough, the assessment then will actually wrap around and give them questions in phonemic awareness. And then students in third grade, they will actually begin with vocabulary, and if necessary, they will be introduced to those lower domains based on their answers to questions. And iReady is one of the state-approved assessments for the early foundational reading and dyslexia screening. And we have additional required assessments that are used in Wentzville. They do include iReady fluency tasks as part of the foundational reading assessments and our dyslexia screener. We also have a spelling assessment that is used, and in the upper grades in high school, we are currently using an NWEA map growth assessment to also look at math and reading along with science. And so, here's the clicker, thank you. Okay, so some additional assessments we are using include progress monitoring probes. We use iReady literacy tasks, phonological awareness, and phonic screener inventories to progress monitor our reading success plan interventions, and to help provide additional body of evidence in determining a student's literacy skills. Teachers can utilize the phonological awareness screening test and the quick phonics assessments, and a lot of times you'll hear those referred to as the PAST or the QPA. And so what we want to do is to really allow you guys to dig into the iReady reports and the data that teachers use to make those database decisions regarding the instructional needs of their students and adjust instruction based on those needs. So, going into our workbook tonight, the first report on page 9 that you guys have here. So what we've done is you guys have actual teacher reports that teachers are using in their classrooms with a little bit changes of names here that teachers would be using to help with their instruction. So this one here is a diagnostic results at the class level, and these are used for teachers to be able to just see overall strengths and needs as a class by domain. And when I say domain, those are those areas of the phonological awareness, the phonics, high frequency words, vocabulary, comprehension, both in that literature and informational text. So when we look at the top, that shows the class overall, and the teacher's able to see the amount of students that they have in that mid or above or early on grade level, and then one grade level below or two or more grade levels. And depending upon the time of year, those are going to make those shifts. When we look at those in the fall, the students are being measured based on the standards for the entire year. So all the way through that whole year, is what we're looking at. So at the beginning of the year, those levels are going to look, a little bit, they're going to look lower. And so when students come in at the beginning of the year, it's very natural for us to see larger numbers of yellows and even in reds, especially that yellow, because as let's say like this class that's a third grade, technically at the beginning of the year, those students really are, they're end of year second graders because they haven't learned a whole lot of that third grade content yet. So that's normal for them to see. The next thing that teachers would look at is then those individual domains and really seeing where those strengths and weaknesses there. And then they can look at students individually and really see kind of where it is that they have those students who do start to have specific needs, and really getting an idea of where they need to start looking at some small groups. Okay? And it's definitely going to look a little bit different on the computer than it does when it's printed for teachers. Okay? Then the next report that you all have for this teacher is we have Kate Winslet. This is a student here. An individual diagnostic result report. And this would be what the student, or I'm sorry, what the teacher would see for this student. This report provides a teacher with specific instructional guidance, along with resources and suggestions for activities by domain for each student based on what this student needs. This report has served to be very useful for us this year because this is the report that we use to determine reading success plan eligibility. And we're going to touch on that in just a little bit. And I've provided here for you all 2 grade levels for you to review. You've got a 3rd grade and a 1st grade to kind of just to review. And on here we have the percentiles and the lexiles, as well as, again, each domain and all of the instructional tools that the teachers are able to use. So I'll give you guys just kind of a quick second to look at that and give you a chance to look and see each domain. It gives that specific score, and then it gives a developmental analysis for what that instructional need is for the student. What's nice for the teachers is a lot of these things is then on the computer, it's actually a clickable link that takes them to instructional activities that they're able to use for those students in small groups, which is really great.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah.
And maybe it's even to the teachers too. I don't, I'm trying to make sense of the iReady and all the pages.
Yeah, and it doesn't look quite, it's a lot nicer on the
I get
computer.
it. So my question is, how often and how intensely do you use it as a teacher to look at these? Is it a continuous through the year? Is it a snapshot in time? How are these used?
Literacy coaches, do you guys want to speak to how you work with teachers through iReady information? Yeah.
And it does group students for them too, saying like, here's where you should start with this group of kids in this domain, and then this group of kids and things like that too. So yeah, we look at it a lot. Yeah. Science lessons to help with those groups. And then the lessons, yeah, are directly linked in there. What they can do.
It's helpful to see trends as well. So if there's a great level, which domain do you really excel in, which is to have more work in. So we can look at, in the classroom where the strengths are my kids is a great level, and also the best level too.
in your professional learning committees as you are working and collaborating, like Laura said, amongst grade levels or amongst teacher classrooms. You can see where strengths and weaknesses lie, and then collaborate accordingly to figure out which strategies are working the best, and maybe where we even need to look building to building or classroom to classroom to make changes.
And I just want to add one more thing. One thing that we missed that's huge is that teachers do data conversations with kiddos to really show the kids the growth that they have and celebrate their successes and give them goals to work for on a daily basis. So that's huge, just the celebration of growth and the targeted goals for each student. Those are shared with families.
It's also used to learn more about domains. So I taught 3rd grade and 5th grade, for example. So if I had a kiddo who was struggling in the area of phonics, and I might not be as well versed in phonics as a 5th grade teacher or something like that, it's used to give teachers tips and tricks and lesson resources that they might not have a ton of training in, but it gives them a starting point and an entry point into that learning, where then they can go access their literacy coach, or they can talk to their teams and just learn more about the different ways that we teach reading, or the different options that we have. That's one thing. For an elementary school teacher, you teach all subjects. And so you're not a specialist really in any of them. You learn about all of them. And so as educators, we're constantly learning and growing within all areas. And reading and writing and phonics are probably the most difficult, I'll be honest. And they're evolving and changing all the time based on research. So it really provides an entry point into a conversation to learn more as well for educators.
Sorry.
Yeah, no,
I have a
please.
question as
Yeah.
well. So as I'm looking at this, it shows, I mean, you had mentioned that if you reach a certain grade, that students will automatically test out. So 3rd graders, iReady.
Yes.
Yeah, they automatically test out of phonics, phonological awareness. I think the other one is high frequency words. So in that event, are we communicating with our families the PSAT test, the QPA test, just to make sure if a student has deficiencies, gaps in those areas? Because what you had said was this diagnostic view determines the RSP plan, but if I'm a parent, and even if I have the family view, my student has already tested out of 3 of those domains. So just, again, so students aren't, continuing to fall, that we're trying to catch them. What are we doing to communicate those things? Just my experience as a parent, those aren't communicated. Those assessments, I have to ask, but I have the knowledge to ask. So what are we doing to educate families to tell them these assessments show you where your child are, and this is what we're doing to help your student?
Right. So our reading interventionists have done such an amazing job, because those have been some really great questions that they have been asking and have had concerns about as well. And so they have really spent a lot of time understanding iReady and the iReady reports and how the assessment works as well. And so anytime they have had questions about a student that they're like, I'm not comfortable enough. And so, they will go back in and do those additional assessments on students, because they are just like, I don't believe it. I don't trust it, kind of a thing on themselves. And so they'll do those additional assessments, and then those assessments will be a part of that student's records in our data warehouse of EduClimber. And then if that student then also has an RSP, then those assessments will be added to that record of their RSP that will be reported.
Yeah, so Shanna, I think your specific question too is how do we communicate that information out for like QPA, QSA? And you guys might be able to speak to it more. I can kind of speak to we don't have a standard practice across the district that does report those types of assessments out. All students are given the QSA, and literacy coaches, correct me if I'm wrong. All students are given the QSA. Only students that fall within certain ranges are given the QPA at the like kindergarten, first, second grade. There are options above that. So QPA, it just depends kind of what kids need. We don't have a standard way to communicate that information out, like you said, like to ask those questions. That's absolutely something, I mean, that's something too, I think that we heard at the beginning of the year with iReady, is that we don't have access to those reports and information. And so we said, okay, yes, like, let's get family reports in families' hands so they can see it. More recently, it's come up, like, we want diagnostic information. We want to know more about that. Absolutely, come meet with us and talk to us about that. QPA, QSA, some of the other informal, I don't want to say informal, some of the other assessments that are given, running records, some of the dyslexia screeners, stuff like that. I think it's definitely worth a conversation for us to talk about how we can communicate those things out, because we're taking such great information on kids and we're learning more and more about them all the time. So that's a great question. I think it's definitely something we can reflect on.
Yeah,
Go ahead, jump in.
Sorry, I'll just add that a lot of those inform grades as well, which parents do see in the report cards. So there's just speaking of like, there's a decoding scale and there's a decoding grade. Well, some of these assessments would inform a teacher's grade on that too, so.
Yeah, I would agree, that's a good point. I just think since the district is using assessments, I think it's really, it's just really crucial that families get that information. So as we work to build and improve, our literacy plan throughout the district, I think just that communication is an important piece. And, a lot of the parents, I mean, they want to understand and.
For sure.
And they just don't have the knowledge. So, I mean, they might look at this report and it might, I get this is not the report that they're going to receive. They're going to see the family's view. Yeah, this is what the teachers, but even the family's view, this offers a very, well, not a different story, a more comprehensive story. And so I think, especially for the students who are getting reading success plans, I mean, it would be nice, a parent might say, okay, great, my kid has, they have a gap here. Maybe I can offer a resource in my home, or maybe I could ask the teacher more about that. I just think that relationship between teacher and families and anything to do that to help catapult the student where they need to be is a good thing.
Absolutely.
I have a couple of thoughts. Oh, good.
I was just going to say, too, that a little bit later, I do believe we're going to have a little bit of time that we're going to talk about how we communicate with families and resources and things like that. And you're going to be able to see a website that's been built that has a lot of great information. And one of the things that we've been talking about internally recently is maybe even adding to that some snapshot videos that could help walk parents through understanding assessments and those types of things. We think that that could also be a help to our classroom teachers in helping to explain where they could share those out, or they would just be housed on our website. So parents who are interested in information, it'll be there to help kind of serve as a quick tutorial for them on how to read these and how to use them, questions to ask, how to support at home, those types of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that what you're going to say? There we go. Were you going to say that here about the online resources that are going to be?
And one thing that I wanted to share then with our next report on here, and hopefully a lot of you had received the email and saw on the website that we did have the newest feature with iReady this week with the For Families report for iReady, that you are able to access that by going into your student's iReady dashboard through ClassLink, which is accessible on the district website. We were really excited that iReady offers that feature now. And the one thing that I do like is that when you look on this For Families report, when it gives you that progress and more information, the verbiage that is there when it tells you the instructional information for a student there, that is the same instructional information that is on that teacher report as well. So like if, when you have, if you're light reading tonight, you can go back and forth and actually compare Kate Winslet or Demi Moore's reports there, and you'll actually see that the developmental analysis on the teacher report is the exact same information that the parent gets under their more information in each of the domains, that those are the exact same verbiage. So we wanted to make for sure that you did know that as well. And then that information that was sent out this week, we wanted to also really be sure that parents understood what exactly it meant when iReady puts on their needs improvement or approaching a grade level, that we wanted to be very clear and transparent as far as what that meant and what that meant for parents as far as like what we are doing for students that fall in those levels, and you know what you can expect from us. So we're excited to be able to to send that out and have that as a feature from iReady this week. So then another report that is really exciting for teachers, and the coaches even already touched on that, and that was that instructional groupings. Teachers love this because this is basically a report that is making those small groups for teachers. So you can find that on page 46. This is those small groups, and it's putting students in there based on their needs by priority. And then once it puts the students into those groups, it then will take those students and provide the instructional needs for those groups, what teachers can do with them, and then provides resources for them. And on your workbook there, you'll be able to see where it says resources. For the teachers, all of those are linked to those little mini lessons that they're able to do for those students, which has been just a game changer for teachers in their small groups. So, and that is something that even Katie was referring to with, even ways that teachers are able to really learn how to teach some skills that maybe is something that they hadn't had to do before if they were that 5th grade teacher and had a small group that needed lessons that were at perhaps a 3rd grade level. And for our 3rd through 8th grade, we have a grade level scaffolding report. And again, this is another small group report that it does for them, where here a teacher is able to pick a specific skill that they are teaching and getting ready to teach. And it's putting those students into the groups again and telling the teacher, like, these students are ready to go with that skill. And then you have another group of students that they're going to need additional support with this skill before you're ready to teach it. And then you've got even other students who they're not even ready for that quite yet. You're going to need to work on some phonics with them and before they're ready. And then the part of this report that the teachers are really loving is that it's putting them into reading buddies based on their Lexile levels that can really support their independent reading. Teachers are super excited about that report that it does for them as well. So iReady is has been just a wealth of resources for teachers, and to be honest with you, this is just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to these reports. I really am just giving you just a sneak peek, really, for the things that teachers are able to do when it comes to these reports. So I just wanted to kind of pause here and just let you ask any questions as far as these reports are concerned.
I just have a quick question.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when we purchased iReady as a district, do we have any training? Do we have any training programs? I know we probably have training here, but is it training where the vendor comes in and talks to the teachers or anything like that, just to help new teachers understand how to read the different views and what to do with the data and those kind of things? And again, I know we have PLCs, and that certainly helps, and that's part of that work. But I was just interested, is the vendor coming in and we're coming like, have we offered any of that kind of stuff for teachers since we've had iReady?
So we started with iReady in 2019 with K3, and that was pretty basic training then with them, and we've gradually added the grade levels and subjects for them, and we've had training for different PD days where they have come in for different grade levels, because now because the K5 has the math program as the math, they've had math PD, and those iReady trainers have come in for that, and then and we have done right after COVID, we had a lot of just in-house training because we couldn't have and nobody was going anywhere. So we had a lot of virtual training online, and that's how a lot of our report trainings were done, was that way. We also have we have a website, we have an assessment website in which there's all the reports are on there, and like what they're used for and their purpose that teachers can reference, and that's available to them. So that's something that we have them refer to a lot. So that's one of the other things that we do. But we do have them come in and do different things with reports. And I know iReady was just here. I wasn't a part of that one. What did they come in and help with?
I can talk about that.
Yeah,
but first, I want to brag on you a little bit, because Jill and Katie Vanderploeg have been a wealth of knowledge with iReady, not only for me coming new to the district, but going into the buildings as we're creating reading success plans and using iReady to create small groups and interventions, and working hand over hand with teachers. So she's not going to brag on herself, so I will brag on them. So they're working side by side with PLCs to give them some training. And then we thought, it's very important that our principals are trained in this too. If we're leading this out as a district, our administrators need to be trained. So I think it was just 2 weeks ago maybe, we had a local trainer come in and work with them to show them the various reports. And several of our principals that have been here for a long time, like, they're writing down notes, like, I've never seen that one before. So as they're leading out meetings for data teams to determine, like, where these interventions are going, how's it going, do we need to move kids in and out, we wanted them to have some information too.
I mean, I think that's great. I think that's work that needs to be continued, and I think it's important work, so thank you, and just thank you.
If I'm able to add to that as well, this summer we really revamped our administrator retreat and training as well. And we know that our administrators have to be the instructional leaders inside those classrooms. They have to have that knowledge so that their teachers can turn to them and they can navigate platforms such as iReady and understand the curricular standards and where people should be. So we have to build that internal capacity and aptitude. And so we spent quite a bit of time and brought iReady in this summer to work independently with our K-8 administrators as well as NWEA with our 9-12 administrators as well.
Another really strong feature of iReady, and when we talked about the family access on the student dashboards, is there's like teacher resource hubs, parent resource hubs. They do a really good job of just creating videos that walk you through some of their different processes and options within how to help kids practice within certain domains, what different reports mean, how families can, access different things with it that kids are doing in the classroom and all of those kinds of things. So their resource library, along with the professional development they provide and that we provide internally, we are always, like Jill said, this is kind of the tip of the iceberg. We are always learning and growing. And this is a program that really allows us to do that and provides the support to do so.
A comment on that. I actually got on one of my kids right now, looking at it at the parent portal or whatever, and there's an at-home student data tracker that you can download. Mm-hmm. There's a fridge tips for iReady. There's quite a few. There's a video on understanding your students' iReady diagnostic results. There's a guide. So there's a lot of resources there.
I get very excited about it.
Jill will talk forever about it, so.
But I will contain myself this evening, I promise. So the last report that I do want to share with you here is that diagnostic growth report, and this is something that we do get very excited, and that is there, I think, on page 63 or so. And this is where, like our coaches were talking about as well, and that is where students are setting goals for their growth. And this is something that we have really started focusing on a couple years ago, and having those teachers do data chats with their students, and really putting that focus on, what is their goal for the year, and making for sure that students understood what those meant as well. And so a typical growth goal is where students would be making 1 year's worth of growth in a year, and then where they would want that to be 100% by the end of the year. And then a stretch growth it's an ambitious but attainable goal, and it puts them on a path towards proficiency. And a student who is below grade level, if they are able to reach stretch growth 2 years in a row, truly changes a child's educational trajectory. And it's just powerful. And so that's something that, I talk with teachers a lot about. I talk with administrators about, because if those students who are below, if they're able to reach that stretch growth in, 1 year, then we talk about that and say, let's make for sure that we are placing those students correctly in the next year, and being able to really make those right relationships so that those stretch growths can be made the next year as well, because we want to be able to really make those, really change those children's lives, and this is an opportunity to do so. So that's where those goals are being made, and students are excited about those, and they're talking about them, and that's exciting to go into buildings and have students talking about their goals and where they are in relation to them, and so we're excited about those. So moving on to reading success plans, and so don't go too far with your data, because I'm going to make you use it in a second. So we, our teachers and reading interventionists, they are definitely well underway with their interventions for reading success plans. They've done their first set of progress monitoring. They've been making any adjustments necessary based on the results of that monitoring. We're hearing great feedback from teachers, interventionists, and our literacy coaches regarding the process. And we received this feedback. As we received the feedback, our team has met. We've worked to evaluate and research our RSP policies and procedures. We make adjustments as necessary. The team has continued to communicate updates as timely as possible to staff to ensure consistency across the district. Reading success plans are to support students with substantial reading deficiencies or are at risk for reading disabilities such as dyslexia. And as you know, reading success plans were a result of Senate Bill 681. We have taken the directives of this law very seriously and communicate with the state literacy office and iReady RSP guidance on a regular basis to ensure we are following the most recent requirements. Currently, the team is preparing to look at kindergarten data to determine eligibility for reading success plans for our youngest readers. Our list of students with RSPs will be reported to the state in February as required. And in addition, we are also currently screening for dyslexia risk factors in kindergarten through third grade. When we looked at students who qualified for reading success plans, students must be assessed in phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And there are 3 methods in which students qualify for a plan in the fall. That was Lexile level, diagnostic domains, or dyslexia screening risks. And the cut scores that were used to determine risk levels were developed between iReady and DESE through a norming of all Missouri iReady students, and it was determined that the bottom 24th percentile in each of the domains were considered to be at risk. So I'd like you to look at a student to see how they qualified for a reading success plan. So let's take a look at Kate Winslet on page 12. So if we could turn back to page 12, we're going to start with her Lexile level. So a student could either, number one, qualify with their Lexile. Their Lexile alone, is 12 the right? Yep, 12. Yep, okay. A Lexile level alone could give a student an RSP. So Kate is a third grader. So a third grader, if they had a Lexile level of a 385 or below, they would have received an RSP. So on here, Kate's Lexile level was 420. So did she qualify for an RSP with that? No, hers was high enough.
So I already have a question.
Yes.
So this is a source like of just where I'm seeking clarity because there is
Yes.
confusion.
Oh,
So
girl.
That's the
This has
yeah.
been my life.
Yeah.
Yes, we're confused, and
So
then we have
the-
to get straightened out on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
The law, of course, says a year behind. So when you look at Kate Winslet and
Mhm.
it says, you know, she's at 420, or her diagnostic is at 469.
Mhm.
I'm assuming 502 is at grade level? Is that what that bar is?
It's actually the
511,
green,
511.
right.
So if you look
Yeah.
at iReady, it says
Mhm.
she's below grade level.
Right.
But we're using the Lexile level to determine if this student gets a reading success plan. And then just from what I've been reading from iReady, the Lexile range is determined to use like appropriate books, you know, appropriate reading levels, those kind of things.
Mhm.
So DESE sent out a communication that said that is the criteria to use for a reading success plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Not the only criteria.
Yeah, that's
Right.
one.
It's
Yeah.
one of the
Mhm.
criteria. So then what is the criteria that they're using? What is a student on grade level then? Because this
So-
student is in the 28th percentile. So this student, like we just said, would not qualify just based upon that criteria. Yeah, just Lexile alone.
Right, yeah.
So if this student tested out on all these areas, this student, according to iReady, would be below grade level but not getting a reading success plan.
Right. So the basic percentile, pretty much across the board, that iReady and the state came up with, like I said, is that they looked at all of the students in Missouri and did a norming of those students and looked at the 24th percentile and below. And because this, and this is a national norm, but they're pretty, they end, in looking at them, we're pretty close, like most students end up, their national percentile and their like Missouri percentile end up almost being exactly the same. But she's in the 28th, so she doesn't qualify because she needed to have been in the 24th.
Yeah, I just think if it's
In the
confusing.
Lexile.
Yeah, I just think if it's confusing for the experts at the table, just because the law says one thing, then there's, I'm assuming, guidance from DESE. Guidance
That
and the law, do you know what I mean?
changes
It's just,
and, yeah.
It's confusing, so I think, I don't know, just communicating
Yeah.
somehow.
It's been very,
Providing some sort of clarification to that.
yeah,
would
it's
be
been
helpful.
very difficult for, and we've met with other districts on a regular basis as well, and we've got communications with them all the time. And we'll think that and I'm being very transparent here too, like, we will think that we have it all, like, okay, we've got it. And then we'll go back in and realize that, Okay, they just updated this last week, and nothing gets, and like something will not, nothing's been put out, then anything's been updated. You just happen to see the little date thing down at the bottom that says it's been updated, and then you have to go in and figure out what exactly was it on that document that was updated. Was it just a sentence, or was it like anything major? So it has been a very frustrating process, and our team has been very diligent about trying to make for sure that we are as updated and making for sure that we are doing everything exactly to the letter of the law and that we are doing. And we are also, looking at, we've had students that our reading interventionists have said, no, this student was in intervention, and we're not going to just say, oh, they didn't qualify for reading intervention, or they didn't qualify for an RSP, so sorry. We're going to keep them in reading intervention, and because they're there, we're also going to add an RSP for them because everybody who is in intervention is going to have an RSP. So we're making for sure that we're taking care of all kids that qualify, as well as all kids that our reading interventionist professional reading teachers believe should have that support.
I have a question too.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't know if what would it look like is the right thing to ask, or what's stopping us from, or can we do something more, like not just what the state is telling us to do, but use that diagnostic one that says they're at a grade 1 reading level instead of the Lexile reading level, and go off of that for the reading success plans. Like, I know the state says that you have to be 24% or 26%. 24. Could we just use a diagnostic that says they're not on grade level and say, okay, you get a reading success plan?
Yeah, so on her, like, if we look into this, like, so she ends up qualifying. I was strategic about that. Because there's other things. Right. So, like, this next thing that we go into on here, and that, so, like, there's definitely really good things about the RSPs, and so, because we have a lot of 4th and 5th graders who actually their diagnostic may actually show them pretty close to on grade level, but 4th and 5th graders, if you'll notice, if you look at that middle section, 4th and 5th graders, they only have to be at risk in one domain. So if they are low in one of those, they will get an RSP automatically. They are the only grade level that's the case. So what I like about that for those students is we're not letting those students fall through the crack if, like, they're low in fluency, because down the line, as a 6th, 7th, 8th grader, that can really cause a problem. So that student now can have an RSP, and we're targeting our intervention for that student in fluency, even though everything else could be at grade level. And so if we look here at this student, the blue means that you have to have one or the other or both of those. That could give you an RSP. So if her phonological awareness or her phonics are below those scores, and I may have done a typo there because it might be a 462 across the board, but I'm not sure. Anyways, but it's one or both of those. That could give you an RSP. Or in the orange, it's two or more of those. So it's fluency or vocabulary, fluency or comprehension. So you can just, any combination of 2 of those will give you it. So there's all these combinations that can get you an RSP in the domains there.
So if we
yeah.
look at these scores here, her scores on the following pages, she tested out of phonological awareness, phonics, and high-frequency words, correct, Jill? Her vocabulary score was
And
a 4.
high-frequency words doesn't
qualify,
count,
yeah. Her vocabulary score was a 459. So what grade is a student, a third grader? So would she qualify with a 459 in third grade? Yes, because you have to be less than a 462, correct?
Right, but she needs another one. She's
Another
gotta have two.
one. So her comprehension literature was a 425. So then that would put her, she would qualify for 2 areas and
Yes.
would qualify for an RSP.
Yes.
So I think it's important to realize, like, we look at Lexile just like we used to look at reading level, but we look at all the scores that we collect on kids as an assessment profile. So whereas we're saying, like, the Lexile thing is confusing, the Lexile, it is confusing. It is how we it's kind of where we start and say, okay, do we qualify here, yes or no? Let's go into the domains. Do we qualify here, yes or no? Then there's another component of it when we give our screening tools. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, and so then with dyslexia screening, then now that uses that overall score. So here, if she was less than a 474, which she is. Mm-hmm.
I want to point something out real quick.
Yes,
As we're
please.
looking at these numbers, a lot of them are in those same bandwidths. Her Lexile is a 420, which should not be considered when we're looking at these cut scores up at the top. When we're looking at like 469, 502, 532, 540, the Lexile is not represented there. Those are 2 separate things. And so I think because they're so close, a lot of times we look at those like the 420 is fitting in that graph,
yeah.
and it's not.
Yeah.
So I want to be fully transparent too.
Yes.
I mean, I understand Desi, I understand what the role is, and I don't know. I guess for me, knowing that iReady is the vendor, and we all know that the vendor uses the Lexile measure to indicate the reading level of an individual student and what book is the best fit for them. I mean, there's tons of data from Fountains and Pinnell, running records that is not an accurate measure of if a student is literate. So I believe, I guess what my concern is when I look at the iReady data and how many students might be in that pyramid of how many students are in tier 1, how many students are in tier 2, how many students are tier 3. If we were to carry over how many kids are on reading success plans and take that percentage and say, okay, this percentage of kids are on reading success plans and they're in tier 2. And you compare that to the percentage of students who should be in tier 2. Like that's my concern. I don't know. I just want to make sure. That we're really meeting all the kids. And so when I look at that, when I look at the Lexile score, that cuts out a lot of kids. I understand that they have that's not the only criteria, that there's the subtest, but as we just discussed, if you're in third grade, which is a critical year for literacy to see if kids are proficient, iReady does not measure. You automatically test out of those foundational skills. So to me, those are things that are concerning to make sure that that we have a plan in place, and what is that plan to make sure, how are we using the QSA, QPA, PASAT, all those things. And we're not using one indicator per se to qualify kids who are on a reading success plan. That might need a reading success plan.
And not all kids will completely get tested out. So we get, it only means that they don't start at phonics, because when I was going through all of the data, we have third, fourth, fifth grade students who have scores in phonological awareness and phonics and the high frequency words. It just means that they start at vocabulary, and then based on their scores, they ended up coming back around
Right.
and then getting those phonics.
Right. They basically get to skip that portion of the subtest. So, I mean, yeah, they test out automatically based upon another test. So, I mean, I just want to be transparent
Right.
about my concerns.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the work we're not doing is not good, and it's
Yeah.
it's an awesome
And-
start, but it's just concerning. We have a lot of kids who need intervention.
Yeah,
now.
and the Lexile part, that is a state requirement, so regardless of the tests that any of the districts are choosing, everybody has to report the Lexile. So that, I do know that. We are at 22.4% of our students have an RSP.
I will say, I just want to add, because your question came up with our administrative team. Can we give an RSP for a kid that we think needs an RSP, but the data, this iReady data doesn't prove it? And we explained to them a piece of a body of evidence. We use other pieces of data to determine, and if we at the experts are sitting around the table and determine, you know what, iReady doesn't show it, but we're seeing it in these other examples, then we're going to write an RSP for them. Now, we told them they cannot go the opposite way, in that if the data says they qualify, but we don't think they really need it, too bad. We're giving them an RSP, and we're gonna progress monitor and really ensure that they're solid in all of those skills. But even if the data did not show for MyReady that they didn't need one, but we as experts sitting around the table decided they did, we went ahead and wrote one for them.
We have a literacy book here too that can kind of speak to some of that in the work.
Yeah,
I just, again, and I appreciate that, and I do believe that is happening, but I think it's important, you mentioned, what was the percentage? 22% of students are receiving, and I don't know, is that K through?
That's first through five.
First through 5.
Yeah, because our
So,
kindergartners
yeah,
are being
right.
assessed right now.
So,
Yep.
so 22%, it would be interesting, I think, to add another perspective for the board, what percentage of students are getting RSPs in the situation that you described, where we're still, just at a high level, do you know what I mean? And how that relates to our CI3T plan, and just, I would be interested in learning that.
And there's, and we do have we do have those IEP students who, if their goals are reading goals, they're exempt from that RSP. So, and I don't have that number off the top of my head, because we had a lot of those that did qualify, obviously, and that we, took them off the list.
We have one of our list.
Miss Rachel?
Yeah, and like I said, I think it's important as we talk about our literacy plan. You guys are explaining to us that work is being done. I think that needs to be encompassed, so it's showing, we're not leaving any student out.
Yeah, and is that 22%, is that evenly across grades, or do some grades have peaks and valleys and ramifications?
Right. Yes, and I'm not exactly sure at the,
Breakdown by grade level, but
Yeah.
we can look at all of those things and provide that information for you and stay on board.
Yeah.
One addition is, although a student may not qualify for an RSP, again, if we think in professional judgment that we need to implement one, we can absolutely do so. If there's a student that doesn't qualify and we don't necessarily think they need to, that doesn't mean we're not utilizing small group with them, we're not individualizing some instruction, filling some gaps. So like if you had a student who was Slightly behind grade level per iReady in the fall assessment window. Again, we're looking at those end of third grade indicators, so you may be yellow at the beginning of the year. And we're still teaching into some of those deficits, pulling small group. We have the 17-page assessment that tells us what best practices would be with that student. And then their MyPath is also giving individualized instruction to fill those gaps if there are some. So still focus on that student's area of need, whether or not they receive an RSP.
I have a question. So I just asked, and so intervention like this, RSPs, it's just the elementary level. What about especially the 6th, 7th, and 8th graders?
So we're going to touch base on this a little bit later in our presentation, but there is a reading intervention class that these students can take as the short answer.
To wrap this up, Kate also qualifies with the dyslexia screening. She does get flagged also as being having the risk factor of dyslexia because her overall iReady is below the 474, and then you'll notice that we have a literacy task report, and she shows up as being below level on that as well. And so she gets flagged in multiple places here. That makes it so that she definitely does qualify for that RSP. And so when this gets presented then to those teachers, they all sat in data team meetings and with reading interventionists, with the literacy coaches, and like Rachel commented, that they had conversations about what was the best then intervention for those students. Where did they need to start with that intervention? What area? And then they've been progress monitoring, and we've heard lots of, like I said, feedback as far as where students are, and based on those progress monitors. Some students are already progressing and ready for a different type of progress monitoring and whatnot. So we're making those adjustments and taking that feedback and whatnot. So lots of learning has been going on from our team, and like I said, just making all the adjustments that need to be made and making those high priorities for us.
One of the resources that we referenced earlier tonight was just some additional family information and a way to share just different things that can be happening at home. Bryn, if you want to click on this link here, it says Reading Success Plans at the top. This takes you to just our department, Academic Services Department, and it goes through just the different steps, all the wonderful things you've learned about RSPs tonight, but it also takes you by domain and grade level into different things that kiddos can be working on within those grade levels and those specific domains at home, things that teachers are doing with them. Our literacy coaches and our reading specialists have really done a wonderful job putting together resources in our RSP team. The RSP queens, they call themselves, because it's all they ever talk about, have done a really good job of organizing that information for the community. So that's just one piece of it, along with some of the different components that we've shared with iReady. This is a little different than that. So.
Yeah. So are there any other questions for assessment at this point? So at any point, I'm always happy to answer any questions regarding the assessments and data that we have with literacy, and of course, any other. But okay, thank you. And enjoy those reports.
So WSD's decision-making for intervention process is guided by the comprehensive integrated 3-tiered model of prevention. We need a few more letters there, I know. But that is our CI3T plan. This process follows the following steps. So I want you to take a second, read all of those bullets, and you're going to select the bullet that you think is most important. So read all the bullets, pick the one you think is most important. I'm going to make you do something with it. All right, if you feel like bullet number 1, universal screening for all students, is the most important bullet up there, I'm going to make you stand up. All right, so Ms. McBride or Dr. Tormala, can you share why you think that's the most important?
I think that it's the most important because it gives us a baseline for all students, for then our teachers to then be able to decide Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, progress monitoring, what they're going to need moving forward, communication with parents, coordinating all of the pieces behind the scenes to make sure kids would get what they need.
Thank you. All right, if you feel like bullet number 2, high quality, universal Tier 1 instruction is the most important thing up there, stand up. Everybody else. All right. So I'm going to ask Director Henke, can you share why you picked that one? Oh, Secretary Henke, sorry.
Because I feel like this is the most important because it's the beginning of the intervention for a student to get the help they need.
All right, would anyone like to add to that? All right, would anyone else like to add to that?
I think of it like building your house, so it's like the foundation, and so you want to make sure you have and invest in that solid foundation, because if you don't and there starts to get cracks, and the rest of the house will start to crumble as well. So it needs to be solid because it's the core.
I was just going to say what she said. That's all.
That's cheating. No. All right, if bullet number 3 is the one you feel like is the most important, go ahead and stand up. All right, so it's easy to pick. Director Lysak, would you like to tell why you think that's the most important?
Well, to piggyback off of Jerry, the Tier 1, high quality is really important, but there are so many other factors that go into why a student, it might not just be that the quality of the quality of the instruction can be exceptional, but the child is still missing the mark. And so being able to identify the reasons why, what those other factors are that may not even be school factors, I think is important.
Thank you. All right, if you feel like bullet number 4 is the most important, go ahead and stand up. All right. It may not be the most important, but it is a piece of our puzzle. We can't do some of the other things unless we have progress monitoring. All right. How about bullet number 5? I believe there's only one person who hasn't. Okay. All right. Brendan, would you like to share why?
Sure. I'm definitely not the expert on this topic, but I think it's really incredible what our team has demonstrated we can do with data to help hone in on student needs and make decisions to help them get better.
Thank you. So this is our comprehensive integrated 3-tier model of prevention. It is larger in your packet on page 68, so that if you didn't bring your magnifying glass, you can actually read it. This image represents all the components of CI3T for literacy. It represents the bullets on the previous slide. Tier 1, which is in the green, is universal access for all students. All students in this level receive high-quality instruction with the core curriculum focused on essential or priority standards in the general classroom setting. In WSD, Tier 1 classroom instruction includes direct instruction, typically through a targeted mini-lesson, with time to engage in authentic learning tasks through small groups, partner, and individual practice. Teacher teams plan during their planning and PLC time for Tier 1. The goal is that 80% or more of our students master the material at this level. On this diagram, the resources at Tier 1 that are bolded over on the left are the resources that will be replaced when we adopt a resource for K-5 ELA. Tier 2, which is in the yellow, is our supplemental support. It is targeted small group interventions based on an identified area of need. Support is given again in the regular classroom setting. Teacher teams plan during planning and PLC times for Tier 2 as well. Planning is based on the data from assessments, both formative and summative. Tier 2 supports are provided to students who didn't master the essential standards during the whole class instruction. So students are getting their core instruction plus additional small group instruction. Our goal is to have 10 or 15% or fewer students needing Tier 2 support. Now Margot, our literacy content lead, is going to tell you about Tier 3 for literacy.
So Tier 3 is the red section at the top of the triangle. Here is where we support students who qualify for reading intervention and ELL students. Our goal is to have 5 to 8% or fewer of students needing Tier 3 support. In this tier, we have intense small group interventions designed to support at-risk students. Support is given in a pull-out setting with a trained reading interventionist or ELL teacher. All elementary reading interventionists are Orton Gillingham trained, or OG. We've been talking a lot about that. And this year, we are excited to be implementing 95% group intervention systems to our options for support. This year, we've partnered with 95%, and we are participating in content-focused learning, coaching, and ongoing collaboration. In the secondary setting, all intervention teachers are English certified and use Lexia PowerUp software.
So now you're going to spend a little bit of time looking at the triangle on your page 68. I'd like you to take a couple of minutes to identify 3 key things from the information on the page. So what do you think are the 3 biggest things on that page? And you're doing that individually. So I'm going to give you about a minute and a half to find 3 key things. You have 30 seconds. All right, your time is up, and that's okay if you don't have 3 things yet, because you're going to talk with your shoulder partner, so the person next to you, and Director Lysak, could you be a team with them? You're going to narrow your 6 or 9 things down to just 2. So what are the 2 big takeaways for you and your partner?
sometimes if a kid has universal support in tier 1, that prevents them from flowing up towards maybe they just need.
Okay, we are going to come back together and share out our 2.
So after this, after we share out, we're going to keep moving.
Okay.
And then we'll go through Nicole and I and do the wrap-up activity because Danielle said people are getting just a little tired.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Okay.
And then we'll go from there, and if there's questions or if we need more at a different time, we can always come.
Okay, so we're going to start down with Margot and Director Goodson. Share your 2, please.
All right. One of the ones that we narrowed down was the goal of 80% of students achieving success in that tier 1. And just knowing again that if we are successful in this tier 1, then we're going to be teaching most of our kids and being successful with that, which then making less of the percent in the yellow and even less at the red because our foundation and our core instruction is so strong.
Okay, did you have a second?
We did.
I'll go on that. So my observation, I just noticed there's an overwhelming amount of resources on the left side of all the bullets. You have resources for tier 3, tier 2, tier 1. And it just makes me wonder, not knowing, not understanding each resource and what's used where, how as our learners move from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, how those resources interact with each other to make that transition for those learners fluid so that there's not a gap in understanding that lesson or material that is created because of that movement and the different resources. And so it just makes me see that and wonder how that impacts the kid that's moving through those tiers.
Thank you. Great question. All right, and I forgot to mention, if someone shares one of your 2, you don't need to share it again. So we're going to move up to Dr. Bretschneider.
Yeah, so we talked a lot about grade level essential standards and priority standards being a very important thing, just that guaranteeing that all kids get that get that guaranteed level of learning within their curriculum instruction in their classroom, and then we can differentiate if students need different one way or another, if they need enrichment opportunities or if they need remediation opportunities, we're able to do that from there. And then we talked kind of just about pyramid in general, just that being that core plus more and then core plus more plus more. So that highest level of support in the red.
Thank you. All right, let's move up to, yeah, A plus.
Okay. So I was looking at tier 3, and I actually think that tier 3 should be the first point for a student that is struggling, just because it's intensive, and it's using the Orton-Gillingham, which has major research, which I know for the special education we use Spire and Barton, and I know that those are very successful. So when we use something like that, and I think that would bridge the gap better than doing kind of a little bit, and like Director Goodson said, when do they move between these tiers? How do we know when they are elevated? But I think I agree that tier 3 should be the first point of contact. We're kind of upside down.
And our other one, I highlighted leadership, culture, and academic. And as a district, we need to be creating a culture within our leadership for high academic achievement. That's like so important to me, so I highlighted those.
Thank you. How about this trio right here in the middle? So President Stoley, Dr. Tremla.
I just want to say she cheated. She chose the whole bottom tier, so I mean, sorry, I was picking on you. So Secretary Hankey repeated one of the points that we had, which was OG, phonological awareness, and then you had something else. Do you want to chime in?
Well, with the OG and with letters, and I admitted to being the 7th grade math teacher, trying really, really hard to learn as much about literacy as I can. but moving, and I know that this was something that Shannon really would like to see, and trying to move some of those resources or those strategies to some of the tier 2. So she talked a lot about that. And then I did star for myself, like the reading success plan and just really perfecting that whole process.
Thank you. How about Dr. Bishop and Jenny?
Jenny tagged me this time, so people have already kind of hit on it, but that universal access tier 1 is probably priority number 1. That's huge for us. The other one that we talked about was, and it's more than just the 5 ways to make intervention more intensive, but it's really centered around smaller ratios, smaller class sizes, smaller ability, smaller breakout groups. So we think that's very, very important as we're teaching that, and that goes K-12, not just K-5.
Thank you. And our last group?
So we have Orton Gillingham. Can I do 3? I'm going to do 3. Highly trained personnel and universal support accommodation. The universal support accommodation, I think, what you were saying, well, you can talk for you.
We're talking about universal support accommodations and just letting teachers, parents, kids know that it's okay to provide universal supports to students in Tier 1, whether or not they have a specialized plan, a 504, an IEP, or a Tier 2 or 3 intervention. Those extra supports are okay, and a lot of times that little bit of support in Tier 1 will prevent the need for Tier 2 and Tier 3 later on. Not that we wouldn't provide access if needed, but sometimes just a little bit of support in Tier 1 or some differentiation can alleviate those concerns.
For the highly trained personnel one, I guess that was, my thought on that one was, I guess my dream world, as Katie would put it, if we could do every PD day be an ELA or a literacy PD day, and everybody was trained on the phonemic awareness to the expert level, and all of our kindergartners could read, that's what I would do.
All right. This is our intervention flow chart. It is in your slide deck. If you have questions, please ask. But I'm going to pass this on to Nicole to talk about our leadership and sustainability.
I get to talk about something that I'm really passionate about. Leadership and sustainability is one of 6 key areas of focus in the state literacy plan called the Read, Lead, Exceed Steps to Success framework. Based on the current data and research, to successfully implement and sustain any new literacy initiative, strong leadership is key. When planning for accountability and monitoring the effectiveness of our literacy plans, shared leadership from the state to district and building leaders, academic services, lead learners, and literacy coaches all play an important role. Leaders will need to work collaboratively to establish a common set of values and beliefs around literacy, provide strategic guidance, support PLCs where the work of database decision-making takes place, help vet resources and teaching materials, encourage partnerships to share knowledge and best practices, and hold high expectations for both teachers and students. District and building level leadership is charged with the responsibility to articulate and monitor high expectations for all staff and students, to ensure ample time for teacher development and teacher collaboration, to ensure ample time for building schedules for literacy instruction, to provide time and tools to analyze assessment data, and to ensure we are complying with federal and state mandates and policies, just to name a few. Building principals hold an essential role in this work and will need a lot of support and collaboration to ensure these literacy efforts are sustained. Our content leaders, lead learners, and literacy coaches play essential roles in leading and sustaining our literacy plan as well. Content leaders collaborate with administrators, teachers, colleagues, and families to provide ongoing commitment to improving student learning in our district. In addition to leading the curriculum revision process, content leaders develop success criteria and look for rubrics for learning walks. They collaborate with other content leaders to ensure literacy is written in curricula across the content areas and coordinate informational family nights. Our lead learners analyze data to make sound curriculum, instruction, and professional development recommendations in phases 3 through 5 of the curriculum cycle. Our literacy coaches provide ongoing job-embedded training and teacher support to build capacity and effectiveness in literacy instruction. We will continue our student-centered coaching model and work to ensure principals and coaches are partnering to focus on standards and learning outcomes in each building that align with district goals.
So if you want to turn to the next page in your workbook, you can follow along with this visual. Oh, thank you. As mentioned, we use student-centered coaching model as our philosophy and structure for coaching. These are the 7 core practices that are grounded in student-centered coaching, and these are the practices that our coaches use to help guide their daily work. So I'll quickly go through them. Number 1, utilizing coaching cycles. The cycle provides a working structure for both the teacher and the coach to work through. Coaches use full and mini coaching cycles. Number 2, set standards-based goals. During coaching cycles, we focus on Missouri learning standards and more specifically, the priority standards. Number 3, unpack the goal into learning targets. This provides clarity for both teachers and students, clarity for measuring learning and understanding. Practice 4, co-planning with student evidence. We always look at student work and data and the learning targets to drive instructional decisions. Here's where the evidence-based practices are discussed. Together, teacher and coach decide which evidence-based practices will work best to support student learning. And here we can specifically focus on science of reading strategies during coaching cycles that focus on reading and phonics. Number 5 is the co-teaching using effective instructional practices. Here, coach teaches with and alongside classroom teachers with partnerships. They work together to utilize these evidence-based practices that are discussed during the planning. 6, measure the impact on student and teacher learning. Throughout the cycle, student learning is monitored, and we also use pre- and post assessments to monitor student growth throughout the cycle. We also gather reflection feedback from classroom teachers to measure their professional learning and development as well. And number 7, partnership with school leaders. Here, the key word is partnership. So as Nicole mentioned, literacy coaches work closely with our administrators. This team meets at least bi-weekly to discuss success of cycle work. They collaborate on progress towards building goals, and they discuss next steps towards supporting their building. If you look at the bottom snapshot, what you're looking at here is what it looks like to have a full coaching cycle. While all teachers within the school district are invited to participate in coaching cycles, it is required for our first-year teachers. Through the data we have collected, we've seen that coaching cycles are proven to be one of the most effective forms of ongoing job-embedded professional learning we can provide. A full coaching cycle can roughly last about 6 to 9 weeks. Coaches and teachers work through all of these steps during a full coaching cycle. I want to draw your attention to steps 4 and 5 again, and I want to reiterate, while teachers are participating in coaching cycles, the coach and the teacher will co-plan and co-teach. Lots of time is spent here. Together, they discuss and decide what evidence-based practices are used to support student learning. Again, this is that job-embedded, ongoing professional development. And I want to talk just a little bit about how we try to manage our times as coaches. This is a goal for us. So 60% of our time we try to spend in full and mini coaching cycles. Literacy coaches generally do about 4 coaching cycles a quarter. And then the other 40% of their time is spent and dedicated to co-planning lessons and units with teachers. They join in PLCs, supporting classroom management. They meet weekly and biweekly with their administrators. They attend coaching collaborations and professional learning. We currently only have one elementary coach working with 2 buildings, so we do not have full-time coaches in each of our elementary buildings. So we are limited with how many teachers our team can support.
Okay, so the last thing that we felt it was really important to kind of wrap up our conversation tonight was just to talk about some of the supports and partnerships that we look forward to forming. So we kind of wanted to talk about just some of the things that are happening and what we look forward to, in the upcoming months and years. And this little guy on this slide is just the cutest thing in the whole world. So this is like one of my favorites. So some of the things that we're doing within the district are from K through 12 are to support and to partnership with families and community members are some of our kindergarten transition events, Parents as Teachers, and Barfield, our early learning events, look to get into buildings to learn more about what's going on and help kiddos transition into the elementary school. We also have elementary reading nights and literacy events by buildings. I'm going to be sharing and staying on board this week just some different things that buildings have shared with me so you can see some of the awesome things that they're doing within their buildings because it's just fun to celebrate with them and see those great things. Title parent engagement events, district website resources. We looked at some of those things with the RSP resources that were provided tonight. Buildings are really great at communicating. The district is as well. So just the weekly newsletters from teachers, monthly newsletters from buildings, and then our updates through our communications department. Our iReady family reports and My Path at Home is a great opportunity for families and community members to come involved. We post our grades and information in SIS, and so that's always an option if people have questions about what they're seeing there to partner with teachers and administrators. And parents also have Canvas access accounts that they're able to get in and see assignments and grades and kind of what's going on within the secondary classes as well. Some of the things that we look forward to, and our department is really working just with new team members this year and transitioning within the last 5 months, we've kind of been together and learning together. Just opening lines of communications with our family and being responsive to community needs and what the community is saying that they want. And we are encouraging families to talk with their children about what they're learning at school, and if they have questions, to reach out and ask questions about that. Reach out to teachers and administrators with questions, and teachers and administrators reaching out to parents and giving them that information and asking questions if they have them. And just forming those collaborative partnerships with all of our stakeholders and sharing data on a regular basis. So that is something I think that we've tried to share is data, that we're constantly looking at it, taking it, and making instructional decisions and changes within our department. It's a slow shift, and it takes a long time, a lot longer than we would like for it to take, I'll be honest. But every single day, it's something we're looking at, and we're setting goals around as a department. All right, so the last piece, Margot, I think this is you, right?
All right, so I need everybody to just take a deep breath.
That's a lot of information.
Right? Yeah, so lots of information, lots of important information. So what I want you to do is I want you to turn back to that first page that you worked on in your workbook, the very first page, where you wrote all of those things that you knew about Wentzville literacy. So just take a minute, look at the things that you jotted down. But now on the other side, what I want you to do is I want you to think about all of the things that you learned tonight about literacy in Wentzville. And I want you to take about 60 seconds, and I want you to write fast and furious. I want you to list all the things that you learned, the new information, maybe some things you already knew or gained a little bit more. If you need to look through that workbook, you can. All right, just about 5 more seconds. The last task we're going to ask you to do is a reflective piece that we often ask our teachers to do at the end of their workshops as well. And you're just going to fill in this blank. So I'm going to read it to you, and I want you to think about what you might put in here, because you're going to share these out. I'll tell you that first. I used to think, whatever it is, I used to think this, whatever, about WSD literacy practices, but now I know this. So one example might be something like, I used to think that students who struggled didn't get any help. Now I know that students who qualify for reading intervention will receive Tier 3 instruction from a specialized reading intervention. So you're thinking, you're reflecting back, looking at maybe some of the things that you wrote on that other list, or maybe it's just things that you had in your head. But what is something that you used to think about WSD literacy practices, and what do you now know? So fill that blank in, and then we're going to do a quick whip around to end our time together. There's some left. I'll share.
Someone's stomach was like, "Rah, rah, rah." I thought it was his. It was apparently mine.
All right. We seem ready? All right. Who wants to start?
Jerry does.
All right, Jerry.
All right, so I used to think that we had, like, each building has their own flair and some good practices, but I feel like it may be splintered or sporadic across the district building to building. But now I know that we are taking the opportunity to capitalize on this moment in time, and there's a comprehensive and systematic plan in place to drive student learning and success.
How do you go after that?
Mic drop. I know, I'm like. All right, Jen's great.
Okay. I used to think we had a 6-year curriculum writing revision cycle about WSD literacy practices, but now I know it's 8 years.
I used to think that literacy was taught in a silo, but now I know that it is truly a collaborative partner.
Oh my goodness. I didn't finish my whole sentence, so I'm going to wing it on the last one. I used to think we have the most hardworking, knowledgeable teaching staff I've ever seen. But now I know that's still true. They just need a little guidance.
I used to think the process was convoluted about literacy practices. Now I know many people are working on a common goal.
Actually, mine is very similar to that, David. I used to think there wasn't a clear enough plan going forward about WSD literacy practice, but now I know that this team is changing what we do and is moving this forward.
Mine's pretty similar to Nicole. I used to think our ACT services team and lit coaches and staff were busy with WSD literacy practices, but now I know they are busy and amazing.
mine kind of goes along in those lines too, just being in the building, but I used to think that we were very busy, but now I know, just being in this role, that it's very intentional work that we're doing.
Okay, I'm kind of changing the sentence a little bit because it just works. That's right, because I'm a math teacher. So I used to think that the WSD literacy practice was changing and growing. And now I know the benefits of being open and transparent with all stakeholders. Is that good? So yeah, I just changed it. That was good.
I'm going to do a little bit of plagiarizing here. So I used to think that that there was a lot of growth in the district. I know that sounds bad, but now I have more understanding. But now I know that I have more understanding of what that growth looks like.
I used to think iReady data provided benchmark data, but now I know it's a fully comprehensive system with many parent and teacher resources to support student learning.
I have no idea. Words. I used to think words. Now I no words. No. I guess the emphasis on, I know there are so many moving parts now, and there's so many external factors. I know I used to think that, and I guess it was reinforced tonight that there's a lot that goes into this.
I used to think WSD literacy practices were just about reading, writing, and books, but now I know it's all about helping students grow.
All right, I'll go last. I used to think iReady, kind of like Danielle said, was simply a benchmark exam, but now I know its purpose is to provide staff with specific data to help them given data-driven interventions.
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you all for participating in that activity. We just want to thank you for your time tonight. We kind of flew through the last few portions of it, and so we can always come back just in our communication with you guys and share information if you have additional questions or need support. But at this time, if you have any questions for the team or anything quickly that we can address, or if you would like to do that at a different time, we're more than happy to do that as well. So thank you all for your participation. I know that's not always easy when you have to step out of your comfort zone. I'm looking at you, David. You did a very good job tonight. But we appreciate you taking the time to give us a chance to work through some of these things with you, and just know that we are absolutely here for you and we are here for the community. And our very favorite thing to do is sit around a table like this and talk about academics in any way, shape, or form. So please know you can always reach out.
And I'd just like to say thank you to the entire academic services team and all of our literacy coaches that have put so much effort into what they do each and every day to support students and teachers, but also for putting together this wonderful presentation this evening. Your work does not go unnoticed.
Can I make a comment or maybe make a statement? So I think this was super helpful, and I think everyone at this table, I feel like, recognizes like academic achievement and where we want to push kids towards. And then I also know the sausage making that occurs as it relates to negotiations with our staff, the budget process, the cycle of money. There's only so much money and there's only so many hands out for that money. What I'd like to see, and it's questions that I've asked before and I've gotten answers, so I kind of know what your answer will be to this, but as we get to the place where we want to set our view on budget and what we think salaries and things should be for next year as we go into the negotiation cycle, I want us to be cognizant and thoughtful around the number of staff we think would support academic achievement, not just around salaries. And what I mean by that is, are there interventionists in place? I see goals in here of where we want to be in the future around having coaches in each building. We're far from that today. So as we think about trade-off discussions that we want to make before we get into negotiations, because it's important to do that now and talk about where the pie needs to go, I'd like from this team, not just specific to literacy, because math is included in that, because I think there was answers on math. So shout out to those math coaches and things. But I think it would be very prudent for us to see trade-off analysis as a board on if we chose to then add headcount to support this issue or these issues, how would we trade that off with other things? And really be thoughtful of that as a team. Sorry, but very good presentation, thank you.
Anyone else? I just wanted to piggyback off Director Goodson's comments. I think this is a great start. I think this would be a great annual workshop for the board to have as we progress and do the work that we need to do to get our students where they need to be. I would also add, I think the most important part of this puzzle is our teachers having the knowledge and the capacity so that they can serve our students in the classroom. And I go back to just what Director Goodson said, keeping those things in mind as we put together our budget, thinking about stipends, thinking about, the contracts and professional development and how we're going to support, even on days where teachers, outside of professional development days, if they have training, how we're going to fill those voids in the classroom. But yeah, overall, I think it was good. It was a good experience, and I think we should look to do this annually. Is everybody ready to move on? Yes? Okay. So continuing on, we're on item 7.2, literacy resolution discussion. I wanted to go ahead and make a motion to, I move to postpone the literacy resolution discussion to the December 14th meeting.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Okay, the ayes have it. I now need a motion to adjourn open session.
Motion.
Sorry, Director Lewis, I did not. Okay, can you turn on your mic? Sorry.
Yeah, I wanted to make a separate motion before we went to close. And if I still can, I will.
If there are no objections from the board, I think we can allow that. Are there any objections?
Thank you. It's real short. There's been some discussion about with the change of the people in different seats. A question came up about when we can add agenda items and who can add agenda items, and the need to follow that it's a will of the board and not an individual. I find that very frustrating and concerning, but that aside, I'll accept it at face value. I want to make a motion that the board votes today that for the period now until April 1st, that any requests from our president for agenda items would be considered as a will of the whole board, so that even though we're not in session, the president will still have an opportunity to make agenda changes.
Second.
Okay, discussion, any discussion? I will ask you, Director Lewis, to repeat your motion, please.
Yeah, I'll try to make
for
it.
Ms. Goodwin, and if you can make it a little more concise.
I will. The motion to, let's see, the motion that the will of the board is recognized when the president makes an agenda request, even though we haven't. That's just that. Does that help? Is that clear as mud? Who am I talking to?
The president maintains the right and authority to set the agenda.
And it's supported by the board, so that there's
And
no
it's
question.
supported by the board.
Yeah, and it's got a sunset of April 1st
Okay,
of next year.
so, again, we're getting muddy, so I need, Director Lewis, I need you to make it a little more.
I know it, and I'm not good at this.
Sorry.
I'm really trying. I motion that until April 1st, the president has the authority to make agenda updates and the, that are recognized, will make agenda updates as a, shit. There's got to be
On behalf of the Board of Education.
So
there's got to be a teacher. There's got to be a teacher
All right.
in the house that can help me.
All right, guys. Director Olson, I think you might have. Do you want to give a shot at it here? A friendly amendment.
The board president
May request.
The board president may request agenda updates or additions on behalf of the Board of Education until April 1st.
Does that work, Director Lewis?
I'm very happy with that.
Okay. So do we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Going to go back to 7.2, literacy resolution discussion. I made a motion. I moved to postpone the literacy resolution to the December 14th meeting. We already had a motion and a second. We just need a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Or sorry, those opposed say nay. All right, the ayes have it. Now I need a motion to adjourn open session.
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it.